As Elise was working in her garden, she suddenly heard a rustling noise coming from the hedges. She was shocked to see it was a lynx, and at first she was really afraid. However, soon it became clear that the animal was not there to attack her but actually needed her help. When Elise realized what was going on, she immediately called the vet. "That is unbelievable." "Stay right there, I'm on my way," she said. She never expected something like this to happen. Elise stood eye to eye with the lynx and held her breath, scared to even move. She thought of the best way to escape, but then something unexpected happened. The lynx started mewing. It seemed like it was asking Elise for help. She decided to take the risk and started walking toward it. Not much later, it became clear that the lynx was indeed asking for help, and it wasn't alone. Its kittens were here too. Why did the lynx ask for help? What did Elise see? And why was the vet so shocked? The sun was shining while Elise worked on the front porch of her new house. She and her husband Brandon had just moved here, and they absolutely loved it. They now lived near a huge forest and were excited to explore the hiking trails around the lakes and over the hills. The front door opened and Brandon walked out of the house. "Hey Elise, I'm off to the hardware store downtown. I need some new plugs and something's wrong with my drill. I might take a while," he said as he kissed her goodbye, got in the car, and drove off. After a while, she decided to take a break. She made herself a nice cup of tea and sat on the rocking chair on the porch, taking in the beautiful view she had from her new home. She still couldn't believe that they were actually living here now. She closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of nature until she heard something. It was different from all the other sounds. It sounded like something was rustling in the hedge, but not all of them. She was really curious and eager to know what was creeping around her garden making that noise. She stood up to get a better look, and then she saw the hedge slowly open up. An animal walked through it right into her garden, and then it stood still and looked Elise directly in the eyes. She wanted to scream, but she was afraid to make any noise. For a split second, she thought it was just a giant cat. It was a lynx. She held her breath as she looked at the animal. What was she going to do now? The animal stood as still as a statue, and it didn't even blink. She took a few deep breaths and thought fast about what she should do. She knew that lynx did not often attack humans, but they certainly could if they wanted to, and if that happened, it could be very dangerous. It would be better to get up and run inside now while the lynx was still further away from her, instead of letting it get close. So Elise gathered all her courage, put her cup of tea down, pushed herself up out of the chair, and made a run for the door. However, just when she grabbed the doorknob ready to push it open, she heard something that made her stop and slowly turn around. The lynx was quietly mewing, and it did not look like it was going to attack her. On the contrary, it almost seemed as if it was asking her for help. Begging her not to leave, Elise was confused. What did this animal want from her? She was still careful and kept her distance, but she was a little less afraid now. "Hi there, it's okay. I won't hurt you," she softly spoke to the lynx. Elise didn't expect the lynx to understand what she was saying, but she thought that speaking to it in a calm and soft voice would help it understand that she wasn't going to hurt it. The lynx turned around and took a few steps toward the hedge, but it kept looking back at Elise, making sure she was still there. She stood still and waited for something to happen. She expected something would attack her any second now, but she waited and waited, and nothing happened. She couldn't believe that this was why the lynx had called her over. It had indeed needed her help. She needed to take action, and she had no minute to waste. She ran back into the house and grabbed her phone, quickly dialing the local vet's number. Luckily, the phone only rang twice before someone picked up. When she explained to Dr. Smith what she had encountered, he gasped, "How did you manage this?" Elise shrugged, her own amazement mirrored in her eyes. "I'm not sure. She just came to me." Together they set about creating a safe haven in Elise's garage. Old blankets were spread out, and a corner was designated for food and water. Dr. Smith methodically examined each kitten, his hands steady yet gentle. "They seem healthy," he murmured, remarkably so given the circumstances. Dr. Smith turned to the lynx, a respectful distance maintained. "She's fine, a bit stressed but healthy, remarkable." Neighbors peeked over fences, curiosity piqued by the sight of Dr. Smith's parked car, and the rumor of a wild lynx in Elise's garden. Children whispered in awe, and adults speculated in hushed tones. "Have you seen the lynx?" became the question of the hour. Elise knew her life was about to change. With her garden now a point of local interest, the first night Elise stayed up late, watching over the Lynx family. By mid-morning, neighbors started arriving with offers of help. Some brought food, others blankets, and a few just wanted to help however they could. Elise was touched by the outpouring of support. "We're all in this together," one neighbor said, handing over a bag of groceries. With the community support, Elise delved deeper into understanding lynxes. She pored over books and online resources, learning about their habits, diet, and needs. Each new piece of information helped her provide better care for her temporary family. As days passed, Elise became fascinated by the mother lynx's behavior. She noticed how the lynx communicated with her kittens, a series of soft growls and nudges. Elise saw this as an opportunity to educate her neighbors about wildlife conservation. She organized small talks in her garden, sharing facts about lynxes and their habitat. Local schools expressed interest, and Elise prepared educational materials for students. This experience had transformed her into a wildlife advocate, a role she embraced wholeheartedly. As the kittens grew stronger, discussions began about releasing the family back into the wild. Elise, Dr. Smith, and a wildlife expert met to plan the release. She understood the importance of returning them to their natural habitat. Dawn broke on the day of the release, and Elise felt a knot in her stomach. The community had gathered to witness this momentous event. As the cage was opened in the forest, neighbors and friends stood in silent support. Elise stepped forward, her eyes locked on the lynx family. With a graceful leap, the mother lynx disappeared into the forest, her kittens bounding after her. Elise watched them go, tears streaming down her face. In the days that followed, Elise found herself reflecting on the experience. It had changed her, opened her eyes to the beauty and complexity of nature. Inspired by her time with the Lynx family, Elise became a vocal advocate for wildlife preservation. She organized community meetings, wrote articles, and even started a local wildlife awareness program. As Elise continued her advocacy, she realized the lasting impact her actions had on the Lynx family and her community. The story of the Lynx family had raised awareness and brought people together. Elise felt a sense of pride and hope, knowing that her encounter had sparked a positive change.